This book is one that I read maybe about 7 or 8 years ago. So this is one that I've already read, and it's up for a reread. One that I definitely want to revisit, and I definitely recommend people to check out. It's and the way I came across this book is I was doing a little book club thing with a friend of mine, and it's a book that she came across. So shout out to Latoya. Shout out to Latoya for recommending this book back in 2017 and 2018. So we read it together in a book club type of scenario, and we discussed it as we went along, and we both thoroughly enjoyed it. And that's the reason why I'm bringing it back to the forefront and have plans on revisiting it. And it is a book that is touching on a discipline that I don't think we've talked about or brought books for in the year and a half that we've been doing UnRead. So I'm pretty sure this is a new discipline or a different discipline that we haven't brought before. It falls under the nonfiction genre, and that discipline is psychology. So this is a psychology book that I'm bringing and offering for this episode. And it's a psychology book written by a psychologist, and it uses psychological terminology, but it's written in a way that is accessible and to the layperson, and is written in a fun and entertaining way in which you will learn but also be entertained at the same time. So my offering for this episode 27 of UnRead Book Review is this one is called Emotional Vampires. Dealing with People Who Drain You Dry by Albert J. Bernstein, Ph.D. Emotional Vampires. And it's published by McGraw-Hill. This is the second edition of the book. First edition was published in 2001. Second edition published in 2012. It has 28 chapters, about 250 pages. And since I read it as a part of a book club, I read it more closely than I would most books. There's copious annotations and notes in here. And just to introduce this book, I need to read this in one of those movie trailer, movie preview type of voices. The way that Dr. Bernstein sets this up. And I call it, I said it's psychology, but on the back cover, it's labeled as self-help. So I would say it's self-help / psychology. But let me adjust my voice for this one. Drive a stake through the heart of the emotional vampires in your life. Emotional vampires. They may lurk in your office, your home, or online. They may be among your family, your circle of friends, and your coworkers. Perhaps they even share your bed. Right. Bright, talented, and charismatic. They win your trust, your confidence, and your affection, then drain you of your emotional energy. Dr. Albert J. Bernstein, best-selling author and emotional vampire slayer, reveals the secrets that will protect you from these creatures of darkness. Detailing a whole range of disordered personality types, Bernstein shows you how to spot the vampires in your life and equips you with a range of defense strategies that are guaranteed to keep the bloodsuckers from draining you dry. Highly practical and laden with humor, this refreshed second edition will teach you how to identify an emotional vampire, antisocial, obsessive compulsive, histrionic, narcissistic, or paranoid before you get bitten and deal with his or her specific personality type. Use an arsenal of techniques to avoid bad relationships and rehabilitate those that can be brought back from the dead. Negotiate that unique and tricky situation when the emotional vampire is a spouse, partner, or child. With emotional vampires, you will be well armed to handle the most draining people in your life without shedding a single drop of blood. And some information about the author. Albert J. Bernstein, Ph.D., is the best-selling author of Dinosaur Brains, Neanderthals at Work, and Sacred Bull. He's a clinical psychologist, speaker, columnist, and business consultant. And also, wait a minute, going to some the additional information about him. So he lives in Portland, I believe. Yes. Okay. Yep. He lives in Portland, Oregon, with his wife, and his wife is a psychologist also. And their grown children and their granddaughter also live in Portland. And he's the author of a number of books on psychology and business. And he has a website, albernstein.com, where you can learn more about him and his work. So the way that this book is set up, like I mentioned, it has 28 chapters. It starts out by introducing the emotional vampires, and this is where you see the edutainment come in. He uses the vampire metaphor as a way to draw the reader in, engage the reader, entertain the reader while educating them on these types of personality disorders. And he has very creative and clever names for the personality disorders and these types of personalities. And he starts out in the first chapter by giving the overview of the emotional vampires and the 5 personality disorder types. So he gives an introduction, a brief description of each of those. And then in each chapter, he goes into detail and he elaborates on each of these personality disorder types. And he uses, and rather than using a bunch of psychological jargon, he uses scenarios to illustrate the behavior of these emotional vampires. So along with giving you the descriptions of how to spot or recognize these personality disorder types, he also provides tips on how to deal with these individuals. And there's also specific types within the 5 personality disorders. So there's specific types of histrionics, specific types of obsessive compulsive. So he goes into details about those. So just to give a overview of the 5 personality types, I'm actually going to go to the conclusion. So after he goes over and elaborates on all of the disorder types and how to deal with them and how to recognize them, his last chapter, chapter 28, is called Sunrise at Dracula's Castle, which is a summary of the emotional vampires and some closing words on how to move, how to operate, how to maneuver these relationships and these energies. But just to give you a brief overview of what each personality disorder type is, I'll read from this summary, this conclusion here. Antisocials are addicted to excitement. They draw you in with devilish charm and the promise of thrills in the dark. You'll be drained if you expect them to remember their promises in the morning. Histrionics live for attention. They beguile you with their stunning performances, but when the curtain falls, they fall apart. Between shows, you'll have to put them back together. Narcissists think they're God's gift to the world. They'll tell you you're as special as they are, but as soon as they get what they want, they'll hardly remember your name until the next time they need something. Obsessive compulsives seem too good to be true. They strive for perfection by working hard, playing by the rules, and attempting to control everything within a 10-mile radius, including you. Paranoids prowl the night, searching for answers that are simple and true. Their certainty is so reassuring until they start having questions about you. So those are the 5 types. And just to give you an example of the scenarios and the tools that Dr. Bernstein gives you to recognize and point out these emotional vampires, I will go to the first section and just deal with the narcissistic, the antisocial, which he deems or he refers to as the daredevils. So I'll share a little bit of that. What page number did I write down? Okay, I wrote down 23 for the checklist and 31 for how to protect yourself. So I want to make sure I close out by sharing those. But I want to read one of the scenarios here. Which one? Did I want to read the one about Brenda? No, I wanted to read the one about VJ and did I write that page number down? All right, well, we got the daredevil ex-husband. I could read that one. But where's the one? The daredevil is the one that's craves that excitement, addicted to the excitement, and they're fun to be around, but once you need them to be serious about something, they're unreliable and not dependable. So I wanted to give an example of that. And then also, if you allow the daredevil to pull you too far in, they'll have you engaging in irresponsible behavior and activity too. So the daredevil hypnosis, here we go. I'm going to read this section here just to give you a little sample of how he creates these scenarios to illustrate in these lay people's terms so anyone can understand these personality disorders. Chemical or behavioral, at whatever level you think about their style, daredevils offer a wild ride that pulls you out of your workaday world and into their alternative reality of fun and adventure. Without even trying, they are superb hypnotists. The alternative reality they offer is enticing, all fun, and no responsibility. It always starts small. Now, let me get to the scenario here. The role play. Yo, VJ, Vampire Brian here with the ski report. 21 new inches of powder last night, with more falling as we speak. If we drive up tonight, we can beat the crowds to the lifts in the morning. Brian, tomorrow's Friday. I'm working. How did you manage to get the day off? Suddenly, Brian's voice sounds weak and raspy, as if he had to struggle to draw a breath. I've got that flu that's going around. It's really hit me hard. I tried to get out of bed this morning, but I just can't seem to. Brian's voice fades into a weak cough. Geez, you really do sound sick. How are you doing that? Brian answers in the same faltering voice. It's simple. Just lie down and blow most of the air out of your lungs. It makes you sound like you're about to die. Try it. VJ leans back in his chair and tries to imitate Brian's sickly voice. I have a bad case of the flu. Really lame, VJ. How's this? Do I sound sick enough now? VJ chokes out the words. Right on the money. Brian's laughter turns into a fit of ersatz coughing that ends in the wheezing gasp. Daredevils are great at spotting people who could use a little fun, especially fun that involves rebellion against authority. As hypnotists, they speak to the teenager inside us and describe all the wonderful possibilities that life holds if we're just willing to take a risk. The bind they put us in is a dare, simple and effective. Do it or kiss the opportunity goodbye and admit that you didn't have the guts. There's nothing wrong with calling in sick to go skiing if you do it only once in a while. The problem with daredevils is that they don't know when to stop. They have a real gift for pulling other people along further than they wanted to go. So that's an example of the daredevil. And he also breaks it down into male and female. He gives you the male version of the daredevil. He also gives you the female version of the daredevil. And he does the same thing with the other 4 personality disorders. And the other thing that I wanted to touch on that he does in this chapter is he gives you a checklist. Or also let me show you the illustration. He also has illustrations in the book too of what of what these daredevils might look like, or what these different characters might look like. So the vampire daredevil right there, that's him. Let me show you another illustration before I go to the checklist. Okay, this is this is what he has for the histrionic type. So he has these fun little cartoons and illustrations of what the people look like. Let me show you the narcissist. There go the narcissist with his cigar, sitting in his easy chair. So the checklist for each personality disorder type, he has a true or false checklist. So you can go down the list here and answer true or false to the questions. And for specifically for the antisocial type, if 5 or more true answers qualify. No, it says 5 or more true answers qualify the person as antisocial emotional vampire, although not necessarily for a diagnosis of antisocial personality disorder. If the person scores higher than 10, hold on to your wallet and your heart. So let me read a couple of these true or false statements here, just so you can get an idea of what this author is suggesting that you look for. Number 1, the person believes that rules were made to be broken. Number 4, this person regularly engages in dangerous activities for their thrill value. Number 10, this person seldom worries. Number 11, this person actually believes that some problems can be settled with a fist fight. Let's see. Number 13, this person justifies doing bad things to people because others would do them too if they had the chance. Number 19, this person regularly makes promises that he or she doesn't keep. So those are just some of the examples of statements that the reader of this book can answer true or false to if they're thinking about a specific person in their lives or that they know, to determine whether they are antisocial emotional vampire. And then he ends off every chapter with, or each, well, not every chapter, but each section, each emotional vampire section with ways that you can protect yourself. So still dealing with the daredevil section, the antisocial. He offers 10 ways to protect yourself from daredevil. So I'll just read off the titles. I won't read the details of each, just to save time. And then I will land my plane after I share these tips to protect yourself. Number one, know them, know their history, and know your goal. Number two, get outside verification. Number three, do what they don't. Four, pay attention to actions, not words. Five, identify hypnotic strategies. Six, pick your battles. Seven, let contingencies do the work. Eight, choose your words as carefully as you pick your battles. Nine, ignore tantrums. And 10, know your own limits. And like I said, he goes into details about what each of those 10 tips mean and what they actually look like. And I gave you the antisocial emotional vampire as the highlight, the example of what he does with each of the emotional vampire types. And like I mentioned, there are specific types within each personality disorder. And he also breaks it down into male and female. And so, yeah, that's emotional vampires in a nutshell. Again, the full title is Emotional Vampires, Dealing with People Who Drain You Dry by Albert James Bernstein, Ph.D. And that is my offering for this episode.
Where shall I begin? First, let me just say, for all those watching, please excuse my outburst of laughter, but we did not know, I'm talking about you and we, did not know that Professor Westbrooks was going to give us an interpretation. You've missed your calling. I think acting is someplace you need to, maybe that just goes with that whole English professor thing, the acting and the English professor just goes together. But, oh, your voices for your reading, loved it. It sounds like a fascinating book. And, is so timely. I think that, many people could relate to, all of the personalities that you've mentioned in the book, and definitely be able to go in and take a look at some of these things with levity and be able to, examine the environment that they're in with the people in their lives, even, their family, their work life, whatever. So it definitely seems like an amazing offering. I have to ask, when you got finished this book, can you say that you saw yourself in any of these personalities?
Oh, absolutely not. Absolutely not. Not at all. Not even close. Thankfully.
But now, could you recognize some of those people in your life though?
Maybe not so much in my immediate circle. Like he's discussing people that are in your inner circle, really close, like you mentioned, partners, children, co-workers. So not so much in my immediate relationships, but definitely people that I've observed from a distance. Yes.
I tell you, I don't know. I was listening. I was like, sounds kind of familiar. I love that though. That. It reminded me of when I brought Planets at Play. Yes, it kind of reminded me of that type of energy, the way that he set the book up. And I love that because it is a very heavy topic. And most times when you find books on emotional vampires and, energy, kind of stuff between people, is very heavy, is very emotional, and sometimes I think that the layperson can kind of get lost in it. But, clearly that offering there offers some comedy and some heavy facts at the same time. So I think it's just a beautiful offering. May I ask what led your group to pick that book?
It was well, I just pretty much went for the ride. I'm saying, you know, whatever you pick, I'm good with. This was our second book. Our first one was The 5 Love Languages, and I believe this was the second one. And yeah, she just she came across it. Maybe she came across it in Barnes and Noble or something like that, and the title just struck her. And I think she was going through a situation at that time in which she was dealing with an emotional vampire. So I'm pretty sure that's, well, actually, no, this might have been before that, or it might have been another emotional vampire she was dealing with. But yeah, I think it was more so her choice and what really grabbed her attention and stood out to her, and I just went with it because, you know, this was during a time where, and this is I'm giving you some insight into my reading background. Around 2017 and 2018, I made a conscious decision to expand my reading type in terms of the genres and topics and disciplines that I read. For a while, I was very limited to, you know, history and maybe like religion and Black studies and maybe novels. You know, since I was into literature and English, I was like, you know what? Let me expand a little bit and open myself up to some other types of books. And beautiful. That was part of my openness. The reason why I was so open to picking up this book was I was making a conscious decision to expand my horizons in regards to the types of books that I read.
Wonderful. I love to hear that. And, you know, I'll say that, you know, the reason I asked about what made her pick the book or what made you collectively pick the book is because a lot of times we pick books kind of, you know, mirroring the things that we've gone through. And, you know, I definitely could see a transition from the love languages to that book there, the emotional vampirism, because, you know, love languages, you know, when for all of those guys who are watching or who will be watching the 5 love languages, which they have them for couples, you know, spouses, siblings, children, all these different things. But those places kind of talk about the way that people give and receive love. And I can definitely see that emotional vampirism, you know, things like manipulation, et cetera, finding their way into that space. So it almost seems like a natural progression. So very intuitive of her, you know, to pick that one next. It sounds like you guys had a great trajectory in which you were going, and it's fantastic that you know, open your horizon to other kinds of books, because trust is just a wonderful world out there. There's a wonderful world of books out there, and I love that you picked this one for a reread. Great selection.